then you don't stop, even if Bibi walks in. Or King Charles.
Maybe Putin.
Putin, I would be worried about. If you're disrespectful to Putin, you could find yourself on an exploding plane somewhere, or with poison in your underpants, right? We know. But anyways, so there is a machloket. Some rabbis say that if your child is making noise and disturbing the entire group, then you should take him out. You shouldn't interrupt in speech, if possible, but you can walk, carry a child and take him out because you're ruining everybody's prayer. But there's a debate about it. Some people say, no, in the middle of Amidah, you don't stop for anything. It's not pikuach nefesh. Okay, there's 100 people that you're bothering and nobody can pray because of you. Some people say you shouldn't stop in the middle. You should maybe just finish quickly and then take care of your child. But there are poskim who say you're allowed to pick up your child and take him outside so he doesn't disturb everybody. And then you'll continue your Amidah there. Continue your Amidah outside if it's necessary. There's also a situation where, but that's not called an interruption if you don't speak, if you don't interrupt with speech. You're moving your feet, but that's not the same thing as interrupting with speech. Also, let's say you're praying and you forgot Ya'alev Yavo, Rosh Chodesh. Now you don't remember what the halacha is. We learned it in class, but you don't remember. So you're not going to go over to the rabbi and talk to him because it's speech. But you could look it up in the book. What if the book, the Pnina Halacha, we learned it, it's right over here. But it's in a different room. So in the middle of the Amidah, you walk from where you are, go get the book, look up the Halacha. What do I do? Do I go back? Do I not go back? Do I have to repeat? And then when you know the Halacha, so then you continue praying the Amidah. As long as you don't speak, it's not really considered an interruption. Ideally, it's called the Amidah because you stand in one place. But if you need to look something up, if you need something that's bothering, they also say, what happens if your Siddur falls in the middle? So if it's your Siddur, obviously you can't continue praying because you need it. Say somebody else's Siddur falls. Or your Kippah falls. So the poskim say like this, if you can continue without it bothering you, so it's more important to stand in the Amidah, not interrupt, than to pick up a holy object which fell on the floor. But if you're a little bit OCD, no, chas v'chalila, not really sick, but your mind is so distracted, it bothers you so much that there's a chumash on the floor, that you can't concentrate on your prayers, get up, pick up the chumash, and come back and continue your prayers. Moving is not as bad an interruption as speaking is in the middle of your Amidah. But other than that, the Amidah, usually we don't interrupt, and you shouldn't interrupt in the middle of... but the other places, if there's something very worthwhile doing, like answering Baruch Hu, or answering a Kaddish, all the other prayers you can interrupt in the middle to answer.
It's not Shema Amidah.
Shema you can also. You can interrupt Shema. You can interrupt your Shema in the middle. Even though it's the Oraita.
I don't understand how the Amidah is higher status than the Shema.
Good question. It's a good question. I think the key to understanding it is, what are you doing? When you're saying the Shema, you're reciting your faith. It's an affirmation of faith. It's a mitzvah to recite the words. You are fulfilling in your heart that you accept God as your king and that you're worshiping Him. But really, it's a conversation between who? Me and myself. And I. You're making the statement to yourself. You're not telling anybody else. In the Shema. The Shema, it's a personal statement. Shemona Esrei is a dialogue. Or sometimes it's a monologue, right? Because we don't hear God respond. But the idea is that the Amidah, you're in an encounter, you're standing in front of God. That's the essence of what it means to pray. That you are standing in the presence of God and speaking to Him. You have the opportunity. Hashem gave you this amazing opportunity. He says that God will be there for you, listening to your prayers whenever you turn to Him in prayer. The key part of that is when you turn to Him in prayer. You say, Baruch Atah, Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Avotenu. we say these 19 blessings in front of Hashem. So interrupting a dialogue, it's like when you're having a meeting with a very important, with Bibi, let's say. Okay, now somebody who's really important. I don't know. I don't want to. You're having a meeting with the bank manager, okay? And you get a phone call in the middle. You say, "Hang on, I got to talk to someone else." No, you don't do that. You can't do that. That's disrespectful.
Shema is like you're bowing.
Shema, it's not a dialogue. You're not necessarily in front of Hashem. You're in your home. You're wherever you are, but you're not talking to God in a one-to-one encounter. So and that's the root of the difference between them. That even though Shema is Doraita and Amidah, there is opinions about whether it's Doraita or Rabbanan, but the essence of what Tefillah is that you're in a conversation. You can't interrupt the conversation. Yeah.
So, if you are in the middle of the declaration of redemption, which is the Shema, if you hear Kaddish,
what are you in the middle of?
Of the declaration of Shema.
Declaration of Shema, yes. Reciting Shema, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The meaning of the Shema is the redemption, right?
The meaning of the Shema is not redemption. Redemption is that God will redeem us. God will save us. Like He took us out of Egypt, He's going to take us out of Colombia, and He's going to take us out of Venezuela, He's going to take us out of Russia, He's going to take us out and bring us back to the land of Israel and bring peace on earth. That's redemption. What does that have to do with Shema? Shema is, God is our God. I'm going to worship Him. I love Him. I fear Him. I commit to act and to fulfill His mitzvot that remind me of this commitment. It's nothing about redemption. Redemption is after the Shema. There's a bracha. Baruch Atah Hashem Gal Yisrael.
That's what I'm...
So I don't understand what you mean.
So, you can go over Pesukim to reply Amen for the Kaddish and continue...
So we're talking about interruptions in the middle of your prayers. So there's a chart. I think it's in our books. There might even be a chart in the back. Do you see a chart in the back? Yes, there is. Look at this. Everybody open up, please, to page 1315. 1315. Do you have the book? And it goes on to 1315, 6, and 7. And the chart goes like this. On top, 1315.
Very back.
The very back. Very back. The very back. 1315. It says, the top of the page, the columns are where are you praying? So that's Psukei de Zimra. Let's say you're in the middle of Psukei de Zimra is the first column. The second column is within a paragraph of the Shema or the preceding blessings. The second column is between the paragraphs of the Shema or the preceding blessings. What's the difference between them? Within a paragraph or between the paragraphs. Interesting. And the last one is between the concluding blessing Gal Yisrael and the beginning of the Amidah. Wow, that's a very tiny crack. You say Gal Yisrael and you've not yet started the Amidah. So here is on the various rows are what are the various things you might want to say in all these different situations. Amen Yehei Rabba, we just talked about it.
It's the middle of the Kaddish.
Middle of the Kaddish. And the Amen following the Amiram Ba'alma. See, fifth row is exactly what I taught you, Shmuel, just a minute ago.
Okay.
So those two, answering to the Kaddish is permissible in all the options except for the last one. The last one, it's at the end of the first section of the Kaddish. After the Yehei Rabba.
I have a question that is missing here regarding the Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. It depends on the custom as well, but it is forbidden or permissible saying Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo in every blessing. For instance, the Baruch Atah Hashem, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim Venatananu Torato, Baruch Atah Hashem, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, Noten HaTorah. Is allowed saying in...
It depends where you are. Let's just all get it together, guys.
The first line.
Let's all discuss it together, because otherwise We're a small group, but I'll take all the questions, but one at a time. So Amram is asking now, what happens? It says here, row number 3. Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. In some communities, whenever you hear a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, hear Hashem's name, you respond, Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. So you can see here, if you're in the middle of doing something important, like column 1, column 2, column 3, and column 4, these are all parts of the prayers where really you should not interrupt. It's only permissible for something really critical, like line 1, the row number 1. For Amen Yeshmer Rabba, even though it's an interruption, you're allowed to say that Amen Yeshmer Rabba. But sorry, I'll say it again. So if you're in the middle of saying Hallelujah or Ashrei, you're in the middle of saying Ashrei, you're in the middle of Psukei de Zimra, you've said a bracha before, you're going to say bracha afterwards, you're not allowed to interrupt. So if someone says a bracha, you hear somebody go up to the Torah and he says Baruch Atah Hashem, don't answer Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, because you're in the middle of doing something important. So you're not allowed to interrupt. One second. That's because you're doing something important yourself. You have to give yourself respect. And the prayers that you're saying now, you're in the middle of Psukei de Zimra, you're in the middle of Shema, you're in the middle of the blessings of Shema. You're not allowed to interrupt. So don't answer, even if the entire community is answering Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo every time they hear God's name. Don't say it with them, because it'll be an interruption. It's only the very important communal prayers you have an obligation, perhaps, to answer. For example, Kaddish, Amen Yeheshmer Rabba. You must answer, even though it's interrupting what you personally are doing. You're in the middle of something else. You're allowed to interrupt. For row number 1, for Amen Yeshmer Rabba, yes.
Is it permissible?
But if you don't want to...
You should.
You
should.
Okay.
You should. It's a communal prayer that you should interrupt for, but not if you're about to start the Amidah, and not for Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. It's just a custom in some communities that they add to respond to Hashem's name, but it's not an obligation. It's not like saying Amen or like saying Yehi Shmei Rabbah. Okay.
But how about in the Birkat HaKohanim? Every time you hear Hashem's name, it's allowed to say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, right?
Depends what you're doing. If you're in the middle of one of these
No, you are
sections,
following the Chatzara.
you're just listening to the Chazara. Here, you're more free. You're allowed to speak if you have a good reason to. There's no problem of interruption. And so if the community, now there's different communities. Some communities, they say in the middle of Birkat Kohanim, Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, when the Kohen says God's name. In my community, they don't. Some Ashkenazim do, some Ashkenazim don't. Some Sephardim do, some Sephardim don't. Every community, this is a little bit flexible. Some people are always answering Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, even when they shouldn't. Like when you're listening to somebody else's blessing, in answering Amen in order to fulfill your obligation, it's an interruption. You're supposed to be listening to the entire bracha, like Kiddush, without saying any interruption. Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo is an interruption. But there's some people that are so used to saying it that they do, but it's not ideal. Because that's not a necessary interruption. Baruch Hu Shemo is just a custom that some people do. But there's other things. If you go on to the next page, let me see other things. Let's say, top of page 1316 now. Turn the page. You hear the Baruch Hu. You're in the middle of Shema. Do you answer or not? That's what you asked me at the beginning of today, Shmuel, right?
What does it mean by Shema? Shema Yisrael, Hashem?
Any part of it. Any part of it. If you look at the your Baruch Hu is so important that you should interrupt what you're doing. Same thing.
The last column, does that include the whole Amidah?
No, it's just that tiny little crack in between Gal Yisrael and the beginning of Amidah. You're not really supposed to separate between the bracha of Gal Yisrael and the Amidah. The Amidah itself, you don't need a chart. Don't answer anything. Clear? All these are sometimes permitted.
You should like stop what you're doing to listen to the Kedusha.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Will it be considered an interruption if you say Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo in Kaddish or Havdalah or
Kiddush or Havdalah? If you are trying to fulfill your obligation, it's an interruption. You should not say Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo.
but if I say that instead?
If you already said your Kiddush and you're just listening to somebody else say Kiddush, then you can answer Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, no
Same
problem.
happens with Havdalah. Let's say I will do it on my own privately, but
You can say Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, no problem. Yeah. As you can see, there are many responses on page 1316. Somebody's saying the Baruch Hu. Somebody's saying the Kedusha. Someone's, let's say you're in the middle of praying and they call you up to the Torah. But you're in the middle of saying Psukei de Zimra. It's the bottom of page 1316. It says it's allowed. You can be called up to the Torah. You don't want to say no to the Torah. And in Shema, even in the middle of Shema, not in the middle of the first verse of the Shema. Or Baruch Hu, or Baruch Shem Kvod Malchut Olam Va'ed. So you say that quickly, and then you could take your aliyah. Even if you're in the middle of the blessings of the Shema, and they call you up, you should go up and say the blessings to the Torah. The Gabayim are making a mistake. They're not supposed to call you. They should look and see if you're in the middle of something, you're doing something important. They don't call you to the Torah.
So you should like really decline if someone calls you.
That's the problem. It's disrespectful to decline. You're being called to the Torah. You should answer. So much so that you're allowed to go up even if you're in the middle of praying.
No,
Most
you
times.
don't want to do it. Like, you don't want
Also that, you shouldn't decline. Because you're being called to the Torah. Why should you decline? You're shy?
Okay.
I understand. This, but the Torah, it's usually, unless you have a good reason, if you're sick or something, whatever, but you're being called to the Torah, it's an honor, and you should be honored, and you should respond. It's a mitzvah to make the blessings over the Torah, okay? Yeah.
Here says, being called up to the Torah, permissible but not in the middle of the first verse of the Shema or Baruch Shem Kvod Malchut Olam Va'ed. So it's mutar calling up a person for an Aliyah Torah if he hasn't done the Amidah at first.
The Gabai is wrong to call him because he's making him interrupt in the middle of Shema. But if he calls you, you should interrupt because you're being called to the Torah. So it's just in the footnote. The Gabaim should not call up to the Torah one who's in the middle of prayer. However, for example, if there's only one Kohen and you happen to be a Kohen, he may be called up, like if one person knows how to read the Torah. He may interrupt his prayers in order to be the Baal Korah. Sometimes the Gabai just is not aware and he calls you up to the Torah. So if he does call you, you should respond and go up to the Torah, even though you're in the middle. Okay, you can see other things. Let's say you go to the bathroom in the middle of prayers. See the next page, 1317. So of course you have to go to the bathroom. You go to the bathroom. But do you say the Asher Yatzar blessing afterwards? So it depends. If you're in Psukei de Zimra, you're allowed to, in between paragraphs. You can see it on the table. If you're saying Shema, don't say the blessing. You go to the bathroom, wash your hands, but you don't say the blessing until you finish the Amidah. Same thing with in the middle of the Shema's blessings, and same thing with between Gal Yisrael and the Amidah. So this is a nice chart. As you can see, there's a few details here, but the general principle is as follows. You have to be aware of what you're doing, whether or not you're allowed to have interruptions in this part of the prayers. If you're in the middle of Korbanot, you can interrupt for anything. Even to say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. Because there's no bracha before and after it. It's not a unit that you'd be interrupting. But if you are in the middle of a unit, you shouldn't interrupt. And the unit, basically we have 3 units. We have the units of Psukei Zimra, the unit of Shema and its blessings, and the unit of the Amidah, which really you're not allowed to interrupt, except for very important responses. Baruch Hu, Kaddish, Kedusha, as we said. Yeah.
So, if you're in the middle of the Amidah and you feel like going to the bathroom,
That's a problem. It's there's a halacha which says that you have to be a little bit self-aware, because if you really need to go and you can't hold back, then you're not allowed to pray.
Because you cannot make your body. I forgot that.
Your body is considered impure; it's not clean. And how can you pray to God with an unclean body? But sometimes you can hold it in. If you can hold it in long enough, it's hard to estimate precisely. But if you can hold it in for a while, so then that's not considered to be.
You shouldn't start if you think you might.
yes, but things happen.
Some things that happens that you need to go in the middle. So if you estimate that you could hold it if you needed to, for example, if you were on the bus to Tel Aviv from Jerusalem, about an hour, 45-minute bus ride. That's approximately the time that you try to evaluate. You say, well, if I really needed to, I would hold it in. I'd be able to hold it in until I reach Tel Aviv. Same thing. You're allowed to pray. It's not considered that you're unclean if you're able to hold it in for that long. But if you're not, you would force the driver, stop the bus. I need to go on the side of the road. Then you're not allowed to pray. It's considered that it's such a pressing, unclean state, so you can't pray. So if you can't pray, go to the bathroom, come back. Although it's not ideal. Like Shmuel says, before you start praying, you have to make an estimation, not after. Before you start praying, you make the estimation. Okay, I got to go a little bit. There's a story in the Gemara. There was one of the sages. He went to the bathroom. He checked himself to make sure that he didn't have any need to go to the bathroom 13 times on the way to the shul, just to make sure that he was totally clean before he started to pray.
You went to the bathroom 13 times.
Yeah. It's an extreme story, but
A little bit extreme.
it's very, very extreme. It's a very extreme story. But the concept is as follows. Before prayers, you should clean yourself out. Make sure you're clean. Now, sometimes you want to catch the minyan. They're about to start. I gotta go, but just a little bit. I don't have to go. I can go later. So if you can estimate that you can go like 45 minutes later, that's okay. You can join the community. Don't miss out on the opportunity to have communal prayer. And say your prayers. And when you're done, you obviously go to the bathroom. But if you estimate that I can only hold it in for 5 minutes, don't pray. You have to go to the bathroom first, and you'll miss the communal prayer. Whatever it is you have to miss, But you should not be saying blessings, and the truth is, even studying Torah, you should not be doing holy activities when you have the need to go to the bathroom. There's a story in the Talmud that there are people, they believed in the times of the Talmud that if you held it in for too long, I mean, we know that it's dangerous. It's not healthy to hold it in, right? It could cause urinary tract infections and all sorts of stuff like that. But they didn't know about infections. They thought that if you hold it in, you become sterile. And they said there was a rabbi there in the town, I can't remember the details right now, who gave shir for a very long time. And they were all sitting there with fear of heaven and tremendous respect for the rabbi for a very long time. And the entire community went sterile. There was they were willing to hold it. They held it in, but technically that's like I said, that's an extreme story. The point is to tell you that you're really not supposed to learn Torah. If you got to go, you got to go. You shouldn't hold it in. It's not healthy. Sometimes there are situations where you force yourself because you don't want to be disrespectful to the rabbi or something like that. But it's not ideal. You should really check yourself before class starts, before the chavruta starts, before the prayers start. And if in the middle you have a little bit of a need to go to the bathroom, you hold it in unless you figure, I really need to go, then you're not allowed to continue. You take a break, you close your book, you excuse yourself, and you go to relieve yourself. And then you can go back and you continue the prayers. Okay? But not always can you say the Asher Yatzar right away. If you're in the middle of the Shema or in the middle of the Psukei Zimra, Psukei Zimra says here you can say the Asher Yatzar.
Remaining to say that, right?
You can say the Asher Yatzar afterwards, for as long as you don't need to go to the bathroom again. If you still feel empty from your relieving yourself, you could still say the bracha, I think. You have to check that, but ideally you say it as soon as you come out of the bathroom, as soon as you wash your hands, and then you say the bracha. But if you remember a few minutes later, I think it's okay, as long as you don't need to go to the bathroom again, then that previous bracha is already not out of its expiry date. It's expiry time.
Just one more question.
Okay. I don't believe you, but
Going back to the video week. You said I should skip the Vidui part, go straight to the 13 attributes.
correct.
Should I go back afterwards into the Vidui?
If you ideally yes. Yeah, the Rizal was very particular about the order of prayers, and he said each part of the prayers does something very important. And you shouldn't skip. You shouldn't miss out that part of the prayers. Now, I've been teaching you, I've showed you a few times that we don't live in an ideal world. Sometimes there are other values that are going to come up against saying everything that you should be saying. And sometimes you're going to have to make that call. I need to get to class at 9, 10 after 9, 10 to 9. I have to get to class on time. So maybe I won't say the vidui today, because if I say the vidui, I'll be late for class. That would be a calculation you should make. You understand? Ideally, in the ideal world, you should say every word of the prayers. That's what they're there for. They do a very important spiritual work. This is our job. But, we live in a modern world where there's 1,000 things to do and 1,000, everybody tries to cram things in, and we travel and and we're a little bit lazy. Some people sleep in. Not good. But it's because we stay up late at night because we've got electric lights and we can learning Torah till 1 a.m. So it's hard for you to wake up in the morning. Not justifying it, but I'm just saying sometimes there is a need to skip, to not say every single word of the prayers, and if it's a good enough reason, it can be justified.
Waking up earlier is the best.
Yeah, it is. I agree. I woke up today before 5:30, 6. I got out of bed. I davened, vatikin, and then I went back to bed a little bit. Said hello to my wife because yeah. It's early. If you get up early enough, it's a whole day before I get here. 9 a.m. is the middle of my day. Okay, good.
I see people coming after eating breakfast and sleeping for 30 minutes.
Sometimes it's nice to have a little nap so you're awake in class. But, okay, anyways, these are the laws of interruptions and prayers. You asked, I answered. You see a chart here. If you want to study the chart, you can... many other Sidurim have this kind of chart in the back. Sometimes it's in the binding of the back. And the one axis has what you personally are doing. Are you in the middle of a section of the prayers where you're not allowed to interrupt on various levels of not being allowed to interrupt? And on the other axis, you have, it depends how important the statement is that you want to interrupt for. If it's a communal statement like Baruch Hu, that's a very high level of participation, of requirement of participation. But Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, it's not a very important, not an obligatory response. It's a custom that developed in some communities. It's not really an obligation. To say Baruch Hu with the tzibur, if you don't say it with the tzibur, you won't have it later, and you should be responding. If it's a call to bless God. If you don't bless God, it looks bad. It's like being called to the Torah. If you don't go up, it's like you're disrespecting the Torah. So I would say it's not only permissible, it's obligatory to answer those communal prayers if you're not in the middle of something that's really not allowed to interrupt, like the Amidah, you never interrupt. Yes, almost. Yeah.
So, even if it's not optimal, can I finish the whole Shacharit, like between the Shachar and sunrise? We have enough time.
If you have a good enough reason, you could be flexible with that. There's something called, very common now, especially in Israel, it's called Minyan Po'alim. A minyan of workers. Po'alim are workers. Workers, let's say they work in a factory. You get paid, you have to clock in at 6 a.m. every day. 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's the way the factory works. For some reason, they decided. You don't decide. That's your job. Wait a minute. Sunrise is only at 6:38. And you don't have time to pray on the job. You're working. So you have to pray before 6 a.m. It's before sunrise. You're not supposed to pray the Amidah before sunrise. The whole idea of Vatikin is that you start your Amidah the moment that the sun comes up. For these situations, it's called halacha. It walks. Lalechet. Lalechet. Halacha is the word of, it goes with the situations of life. And in these situations, for example, when you're not going to be able to pray afterwards, the Tfilat Shacharit can be prayed even before the sun rises, as long as it's after dawn. As long as it's after dawn, which is about an hour before sunrise,
Yes.
in most days, you're allowed to have daven early. So, for example, in my yeshuv, the standard minyan starts every day at 6 a.m. Every day, sometimes even a quarter to 6, because afterwards there's a daf yomi and people want to get to work. They have to take their kids to the gan, whatever it is. That's the standard. Now, I don't pray there at that minyan. There's another minyan because it's too early. If I had to go to work at 6:30, I would pray this quarter to 6 minyan. But I don't have to. Baruch Hashem, I'm a very rich man, and I can start work at 9 a.m., not at 10 after 9, but at 9 a.m. So then I don't have to pray at 6 a.m. I can pray at 6:30, 6:20, whatever the minyan is, so that I reach my Amidah after the sunrise, and not earlier. It's not ideal, but the halacha has some flexibility to it. Does that answer your question?
I guess the blessing on really.
Everything else is fine. Truth is, it's even it's even better to say the Shema before the sunrise.
Yeah.
The opinion of Rabbi Yeshua is you only say, or the Chachamim, you only say Shema up until sunrise. Rabbi Yeshua says you got 3 hours after sunrise. But ideally, you say the Shema before sunrise and the Amidah after sunrise. That's Vatikin. You accomplish two special enhancements when you pray with a Minyan Vatikim. One is that you start the Amidah right after sunrise, the first opportunity you get. Yirau Chaim Shemesh. The people will see you and fear you as the sun rises. That's enhancement number one. And then enhancement number two is that you're going to be saying the Shema before the sunrise, which is the ideal time. According to the Chachamim, you must say Shema before. We don't paskin like that. We paskin, you get 3 hours. But it's an enhancement. It's an enhancement to say the Shema earlier. So of course you could say brachot, and you could say psukei de zimra, and you could say the Shema all before sunrise. No problem. It's even ideal. But the Amidah ideally should be after the sunrise.
But even though it's allowed to pray before the next there's a specific time to put on talit and tefillin. If you do it
Mm.
in advance, then that would be a problem.
Yeah, so there is, let's say you have to go to work at 4 a.m. Can you say your prayers at 3:30? No, it's not morning yet. So there is a limit to how early you can make it. We said a little bit before sunrise, like 6 o'clock, it's 30, 40 minutes before sunrise, you're allowed to pray then. But if it's another half an hour earlier, it's too early. So what's the earliest time you can pray shacharit? That's one question. But there's another, and there's an answer to that. But there's another issue, is that you have other mitzvot that you want to do in the morning as well. And that mitzvah is called tefillin and talit. And there is an interesting calculation that in order to say the bracha and the talit, it has to be in daylight. Why? Because you have to be able to distinguish the blue from the white strings. But the whole idea of the tzitzit is that you see the tzitzit. But if it's so dark, it's the middle of the night, you can't see them. You can't make a bracha on the talit and tefillin. So if you see in the calendars, the Jewish calendars, they have when is sunrise. And then they have another time for when is dawn, which is the earliest time you can pray. But then there's another time where it says the earliest time you can make the bracha on the talit and tefillin. Even after dawn, there's a tiny little bit of light. Might be enough to pray, but not enough to make a bracha on the talit. And the talit go together, the tefillin go together with the talit. So pretty much there is the earliest time in the calendar for talit and tefillin. Before that, you can wear them all night long. You shouldn't, but you can. But you can't say a bracha on them. You can't fulfill the mitzvah and say the bracha until after that cutoff time. It's about 45 minutes before or an hour. It depends. I can't remember precisely right now. Before, here, I have in my phone. Do you have this app?
The application for praying and the last hours.
Yeah, so I have this thing, it's called Tefillon. It's an app that is a Siddur. Take a look. Take a look here. Oh, you missed it. Look again, guys. Tefillon, it's called. Tefillon, it's all in Hebrew. There's other apps for English. It comes up like this. And then they give you a list. The list is Zmanei Hayom. One of them. Zmanei Hayom. So every day they give you what the Daf Yomi is, whether you say Mashiva Ruach or Moed Geshem, but then they give you other times. Alot HaShachar, that's dawn, 5:04.
From the first light in the sky?
First light in the sky. 5:04, yeah. And then the next time it actually says the words, it doesn't say Talit Tefillin, but that's what they mean. The term is used, Mishe Yakir, when you can distinguish. That's the earliest between the blue and the white and the tzitzit. That is at 5:47. So the earliest time you can put on your talit and tefillin and make a bracha on them is 5:47 this morning. And then Netzach Hama, 6:34. I said 6:37 before. I'm off. It keeps getting earlier now, which is good. More people will be praying on the right proper time.
That's when you see the actual sun itself.
That's when the sun comes up above the horizon. Right. Anyways, you can see that there's different times in the calendar for the earliest time of the various mitzvot in the morning.
I'm not quite sure I understand why is talit and tefillin here. That's private.
Let's say you start your prayers, you're in Aza, or you are in at work, and you forgot to take with you your talit and tefillin, or you're traveling and you lost your talit and tefillin. So you can pray without. You have to pray anyways. You have to say the Shema. You have to say Pesukei Zimra. You have to say the Amidah. I don't have a talit and tefillin. And then in the middle of your prayers, another traveler walks by and he says, I have a talit and tefillin. Do you want to use mine? Or somebody who is, found your talit and tefillin. Whatever. It comes, but you're in the middle now. You're not allowed to interrupt. So to put on the tefillin, you're not speaking. To put on the talit, there's no problem. But can you say the bracha? Because it's interrupting the prayers that you're saying now. So what's the law? Put on the talit, but don't say the blessing. For example, if you're in the middle of the Shema. Now, in the middle of the Shema, there's two columns. One is if you're in the middle of the paragraph, or one if you're in between paragraphs. So there's 3 paragraphs of Shema. So those seams in between those paragraphs, it's a little more permissible. You can actually put on the tefillin and say the blessing even for the tefillin. That's interesting. Not for the talit. Put on the talit without saying the blessing. Only say the blessing when you're finished with the Amidah, if you're in the middle of the Shema. But the tefillin, it sounds like you're allowed to make the blessing even on the tefillin if you're in between paragraphs.
But that's only in the situation when you forgot yours and somebody's up.
Well, the reason why is because you want to put on the tefillin for the Shema. Because you're going to be talking about the tefillin in the Shema. And so it's part of what you're doing. It's not a separation, an interruption. So
But only in that rare situation where somebody
in the rare situation. Rare situation where you started your prayers and you didn't have a talit and tefillin, or let's say you were sick to your stomach, you're not allowed to wear your tefillin because you might pass gas. And then, so you start praying without talit and tefillin, or tefillin anyways, talit you can wear. But and then you realize, hang on one second, I feel all better. I haven't had any problems with my stomach for a few minutes. I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to wear the tefillin without violating the holiness by having bodily functions. So you want to put on the tefillin now, because you should wear the tefillin when you're saying Shema. You're allowed to put on the tefillin right there, even though it's interruption. You're not supposed to speak and say anything in the middle of your prayers. You can, for the sake of putting on tefillin, etc. So there's situations where it could happen, but you're right, it's rare. Usually you get yourself all ready. You only start your prayers when you have your talit and tefillin. You put them on beforehand. You've gone to the bathroom already, and then you don't interrupt. But it could happen. That's why it's here on the chart.
And you should keep the tefillin on until after the Amidah?
You should keep it. The custom is to put the tefillin on for the entire Shacharit service. So you finish Aleinu, as they say.
We see some people that leave early, or they...
Some rabbis talk about that a lot, and they chastise their community, because it's much easier to see that someone's leaving early from shul and they feel that's disrespectful. You take off your tefillin early. You should finish all your prayers and only then take off your tefillin. So the rabbis chastise their community, says, don't leave early, don't take off your tefillin. What's harder to see is the same fellow, he doesn't say a bracha before he eats. He's not nice to his wife. He speaks Lashon Hara all day and all night. But the rabbi doesn't talk about that because he doesn't see it. It's a very easy thing to rebuke you about. And it's true. It's not respectful. It's not ideal that you take off your tefillin too early. But, like I said before, there are various values. If you're rushing to get to work on time, if you're rushing to get to shiur on time, there are sometimes things that override wearing the tefillin for the full service. Sometimes you're in a rush, you need to catch a bus. You'll miss a trip of 3 days if you wear your tefillin for another 5 minutes. You have to cut corners. So it can be justified, but is it ideal? No. Ideally, you wear the tefillin till the end of the service.
I have usually seen in Mizrahi Bet Knesset that they quit their tefillin exactly before the second korbanot.
For Pitum Aktoret. Well, I'll tell you, the halacha does say that for the very least, you should keep the tefillin on till the end of Uva Letzion, where you say that it's called Kedusha de Sidra. You say the Kadosh Kadosh again, and that's a very significant part of the prayers. Once you finish with the Uva Letzion, if you're in a rush, you're taking off the tefillin only for what's left. Shir Shel Yom, Pitum Aktoret, and Aleinu L'Shabeach. it's not as bad as not wearing the tefillin for Ovalet Zion. So maybe that's why they have a custom.
But some others is to the purpose of putting out Rabbeinu Tam.
Do you smell the coffee?
So they say the Ketoret with Rabbeinu Tam on.
That's right. Some people wear a second pair of tefillin, and some people switch after kedusha. Some people switch after Uvalet Zion. There's different customs for that. It's true. So there is a little bit of a break between the sections of the prayers. Who else had a question here? Yeah,
Do you have the chart, the Shacharit prayer here?
I do.
Yeah.
Once we're on the topic, why not? Who knows? Tomorrow, who knows where we'll be? Give one out to everybody, whoever. I think there might be
This
enough.
was the topic for class today.
Yeah, we did the first section only.
Okay.
We only covered the first section, but there's more there.
Tomorrow we'll continue with this topic.
No, we're still in the laws of brachot now. I actually planned a different class. I've been answering your questions. No, it's okay. It's important to answer questions. But if you're interested in this, we could talk about this. We could talk about other blessings another time. These are also blessings.
The 13 attributes is public, like the Baruch Hu, it's something we should all communal.
It's not as obligatory as the Baruch Hu, but it is. There is a public aspect to it. Like you said, you're not allowed to say it on your own. And so if you're in the middle, what you're involved in is something which allows interruptions, like the vidui. You can interrupt
Anything
it.
that's not the Amidah or the Shema.
Or the Psukei de Zimra. Then for sure, it allows interruptions. You should say it together with the community.
If I'm, I can come back to that, and you have to do the 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? That's like Baruch Hu and the 13 that's not in here that we should stop and join in for?
In the chart, so you saw in the chart, it has saying the Shema. It's interesting. When the entire community is saying Shema, and you're sitting like that, what message does that give? That you're not part of the community. You don't agree. Everybody else is accepting God as their God, saying Hashem Elokeinu, and you're not. It's disrespectful. It's like being a heretic almost. So if you look on page 1316, look on the Sidur in the chart, page 1316, the second row says, if you're in the middle of Psukei de Zimra, you're not allowed to interrupt. You shouldn't interrupt. But the first verse, you should say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Even though you're not allowed to say anything else. Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo, don't say it in the middle of Psukei de Zimra. But Shema, with the community, you should, no, just one sentence. The word sentence, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That's what he's referring to. Okay. Say the first verse. Look on the chart. Yeah.
I have a different question. Is it mandatory saying before the...
Wait, 1 minute. Let's finish with this question. The Shema. If you're in the middle of Psukei de Zimra, you say one sentence, right? What if you're in the middle of the Shema itself? You started the Shema before everybody else. But now the entire community is saying Shema. So you're already saying the Shema. But maybe you should put your hands over your eyes so it looks like you're not disagreeing and not accepting Hashem as your God. So close one's eyes and sing the melody of the Shema. That's nice. But you're not allowed to interrupt if you're in the middle of the Birkot Kriyat Shema. But covering your eyes is always allowed so that you're not sort of distancing yourself from the community. So you can see this entire chart. Kedusha, Modim de Rabbanan. Modim, during the repetition. The entire community joins and they say a special version of the Modim. In Psukei de Zimra it's allowed. In Birkot Kriyat Shema it's not allowed. Except for the first three words. Modim anachnu lach. If you're in the middle of saying Shema and the community is saying Modim, so you stop and you join them, a very minimal interruption. Modim anachnu lach.
If usually behind, because
It happens. It happens.
And I'm in the middle of the blessing before the Shema, and they're doing the Shema. I should say the Shema with them.
Only one line.
Just the Shema, and they
If
come
you're
back.
in the middle of praying, you'll never finish if you keep joining the community for everything. So that's why we're learning the laws. But if you're in the middle of saying your prayers, something you don't interrupt for everything. But for the one line of Shema, you should interrupt and say Shema Yisrael Shem Yisrael. Okay, is that clear?
Okay. The Amidah, they can continue on. I'll catch up with them.
You'll catch up when you catch up, yeah.
And they didn't understand the section after Kedusha. What is that? Amen after Ha'el, Kedush.
And Shomea Tefillah. So out of the 19 blessings, there are 2 blessings which are very important to answer Amen to. In the 19 blessings, where the Chazan is repeating the Shemona Esrei, those 2 those 2 brachot, answering Amen, is so important that you could even say it in the middle of your Shema, or in the middle. You can answer Amen if the Chazan says Baruch Atah Hashem Shomea Tefillah. You can answer Amen even though you're in the middle of Psukei Zimra, even though if you're in the middle of the bracha of Ahavat Olam.
Like you finished all the blessing, and you're standing there.
So that, it's not on the chart. It's not on the chart. If you happen to be in the middle of your Amidah, but you finished the Amidah, there's just an extra. You didn't the extra prayers at the end. Elokai Netzor. So there you're allowed to answer the primary important ones, like this Amen, Avakel Kadosh, and the Modim Anachnu Lach, you're allowed to answer. Very similar to when you're in the middle of the Birkot Kriyat Shema. That's the laws, but it's not on the chart. You're right.
Oh, you finish all the blessings of the Amidah?
Yeah.
The last part.
I'm just curious about this. Let's say that you put on the film on this side, you broke it. So what's the halacha for this?
Good question. You find the Baracha Shema Tefillah in the Amidah? It's right before Ritzei. The last one before Ritzei. Before Modim is Ritzei. And, right? Shema Koleinu is how it starts. You passed it. You just passed it. One more page before that. There. See Shema Koleinu? The end of it is Baruch Atah Hashem Shomea Tefillah. It's the last of the petitionary section of the prayer. Before Ritzei. Right? There's 3 blessings at the beginning, 3 blessings at the end, and there's 13 middle blessings of petition. The last one is a general, answer our prayers. Now, Amram asked me another question. Yisrael, how are you today? Not so great, huh?
No, I'm sorry.
You're dealing with the bureaucracy? With what's bureaucracy? How do you say that in Chinese? How do you say Chinese bureaucracy? There's a word for it.
Google Translate.
No, I know the word. I can't remember it now.
They say bureaucracy in Mandarin.
How do you say bureaucracy in Mandarin? In Mandarin. Come on, Stephen. Bureaucracy is a...
You know the bureaucracy in China?
What is it? Huh? Let me see. Play it.
I never say this word.
Politics. Just politics.
Not politics. It means Quan Liao. No. So to put it into Cantonese then. See what it is in Cantonese. It's like when the government says you need one more document and you need to sign here and then this document has to be translated and you have to go to that office instead of this office. That's bureaucracy.
When the government went
I never see this.
Quando delay? No? Quando delay?
The workings of the government.
Quando delay?
No, he said.
Something like that, not exactly?
The government, they're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do you say it? Quan Lao?
Uh,
Delay? No?
Similar, yeah, similar. Yeah, similar, yeah.
So you say it.
Can you say?
官僚制度。
Kun now?
官僚制度。
Kun lo Saito. Okay, similar. Something like that. Yeah, it's the
The
system.
China, the culture say, you know the word two mouths.
Two
The
mouths.
government, two
The
mouths.
government is two
We
mouths.
can talk the government. We are just one mouth.
Wow.
The government, two.
Interesting. Anyways, but also I see you're in a sling. Your arm is bandaged up. How is it? Your shoulder hurting you still?
The bone.
The bone?
Yeah.
It's broken
Yeah.
and it needs to heal better.
Yeah. Tomorrow see the doctor again.
Good.
Because everything happened. Many things. I don't know how to say it.
Wow.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So Amram here is asking, how do you manage to put on tefillin when you have this cast?
Can.
You're able
First
to?
2 days cannot. Yeah.
Yeah, I know the brachot. I know. You know that.
He's only wearing it to impress us. Because usually
You don't have to wear it every minute of the day. So you can take it off for a few minutes and put on the tefillin, right? Because there's no cast. It's just a sling. It's just a sling. But if you did have a cast, and you usually put on your tefillin on your left arm, what do you do?
So should you find the tefillin for right side?
Maybe you put the tefillin on the other hand. If
No,
you have-
but if my tefillin is for left,
You can adjust it. There's a way to adjust it. You can use it, a lefty tefillin for a right person and the opposite. It's not ideal, but you can do it. But you do the best you can.
coats and jackets and stuff. I mean, how do people like put their coat on over their tefillin and not damage the tefillin?
Yeah, you have to have a wider coat, wider sleeve. If you have very, very tight sleeves, it's very difficult. You
There
have
should be
to,
I've got so many layers of
right. It's tremendous devotion to put your tefillin on in cold climates. You need a good air conditioner, good heater. But if you're outside,
It's going to be on your skin, right?
it's got to be on your skin. Yeah, you have to take off the sleeve and put the tefillin on the sleeve.
You're young. When you get older, you
about saying mitzvah.
Say again, I'm not sure. Talit and tefillin?
No, talit katan, talit gadol.
Yes. They're both mitzvah of tzitzit. They're both mitzvah of tzitzit, but there's custom to wear both. Yeah.
If you can't put on the talit gadol, it's fine.
It's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. It's not exactly the same, but it is the mitzvah. Most people allow you to say the bracha on tzitzit, on the talit katan as well. Anyways, we can't all talk at once, so nobody let.
One more question.
If
If you can't put on the
You don't want to eat? I brought you food, and you guys don't. You keep asking questions. What is this?
seaweed.
It's paper.
This was going to be my class for today, but you guys don't want to get a treat. This is not paper. This is food.
I see it, but I don't know what it is.
You don't know what it is. It's called leather. It looks like leather, right?
Yeah.
You could make a shoe out of this, or a coat, right?
That's delicious.
But it is, you can smell it. It's actually fruit. Fruit leather.
Mangoes?
Apricots.
Apricots.
They have this in China, Israel. They have apricot leather, fruit leather. It's a treat.
Israeli?
No, not only Israeli. And you tear off a piece, and then you eat it. It's delicious.
What is this?
But my question is, it's fruit. It's fruit. Apricots.
Apricot.
What they do is they boil up the apricots, or they just mush it. They compress it and chop it up and compress it, and then they roll it out, and they sell it as like leather. It's called leather in Hebrew. Leder. Leder. That's what they call it.
What's this?
And people eat it as a treat. It's like candy
Candy?
because it's fruit. It tastes like a fruit, but it's easier to. It is fruit. It is fruit. Usually, it's if it's a high quality leather, it's only mashed fruit. What do you think the bracha is? Take a piece. Pass it on. Take a piece and pass it on.
It's Hayet's.
So there's a machloket. The Shulchan Aruch says, yeah. Look it up. Look it up under leather, fruit leather. Look it up what he says. Fruit leather.
The same texture, so it's
It looks a little bit like leather, so you can see why they call it that. Anyways, the Talmud says that there's a food called tarima. Tarima, and then the commentaries explain that you wouldn't take fruit and mash it up and then eat it. So some people say, well, this is just like the tarima. The tarima, the Gemara says the bracha is ha'adama. And so the Shulchan Aruch says, well, based on the tarima in the Talmud, this is mashed fruit. It's still fruit. It doesn't really look like a apricot to me, but if that's all it is, it's just pure mashed apricots, it still has the texture of an apricot somewhat. You should say ha'adama. However, the Ramah says, our custom is, the Ashkenazi custom is, it doesn't look like an apricot anymore. It's mashed. You should say shehakol. So,
But if you know it's apricot, because it says on the packaging.
it depends still. The Ashkenazi custom is, because it looks like leather, not like a fruit, you should say shehakol.
apricot is a tree.
Yeah, it's a fruit of the tree, yeah.
So why
Right.
Hadamah?
Because it's downgraded one level.
Oh, excuse me, hayetz. No, hayetz. Not hadama. I've been saying hadama, I mean hayetz. Fruit.
It's extra sugar?
No extra sugar, I think, in this one. There's a low quality leather, which is like everything, they just add lots of sugar. But this, I think, is pretty high quality. I think it's pure apricots. And so if you're Sephardi, you should say hadama. If you're Ashkenazi, hayetz, excuse me. And if you're Ashkenazi, you say shakol. I already said my shakol on my tea, and I knew what was going on. So I'm not going to say another bracha. But I'll listen to yours.
I don't know. That's
Hayetz, apricots goes from the tree. But you're yotze with ha'adama. We learned it, right? Because the tree is also in the ground. You're Ashkenazi, so say shakol.
Right?
It's a machloket. Amen.
We were studying the Shulchan Aruch with list, and it says, talk about wheat. It maybe it's different for wheat, but you can taste it. You mix it with other grain, but it's 20% wheat. You can taste the wheat. You should still say resonance.
Right. That's right.
What is the
You
name?
can taste it's apricot.
Apricot. In Hebrew, mishmish.
Melocoton.
Lokotom.
Melocoton.
Menakuton.
Chicken?
Amen.
No, they.
Amen. Can I have more, please? It's very yummy. Exactly, it looks the same. Exactly, everybody look at the picture. He's got an apricot there. If you don't know what an apricot is,
Can I get another question?
take as much as you like. This is the Torah is sweet. That's what I'm teaching you. Help yourself. Oh, I've seen it.
It has some leather.
Miangao.
No, this is a type of cake. Sweet cake.
Oh. Okay.
It's Hayetz.
So people eat it as a candy. It's nice. Tasty. The cheaper ones are full of sugar. Maybe a tiny little bit of fruit. Mostly sugar.
Well, why is Halakhadosh? Where's that special?
1 second. Is this kosher? Is this kosher? I brought it.
Rabbi.
The one it shows.
What could be a problem with eating leather? Fruit leather. Made from apricots. They make it from other things too. They can make it from plums, from different flavors, What could be the problem?
They didn't check for
Number one is You got to make sure there's no bugs in there. Here, probably, even if there were bugs, they're crushed, they're mixed in, they're not, they're nullified. But what's the other problem? Is every fruit kosher?
Truma.
You have to take off tithes. Truma and Maaser, various tithes. You only buy at a store where somebody has taken off the tithes.
Or you have to take it.
Or you have to take it off yourself.
Let's say there's a very small insect in there. It's not applied shishim.
If it's a full insect, then it's not batel. It's not batel. It's not nullified. But if it's crushed, if it's not a complete insect, then it does. The laws of nullification do apply. And so, if it's less than 1/60th, which I hope it is, and I hope that even if there was a little bug in there, it got crushed. Actually, I saw. If you pass the leather around one more time, I saw on the outside some black dots. Those black dots are scary. It could be that there was a little bit of a bug here. You see there's a little brown dot? Here, pass it around. You can take a look. Because there is a phenomenon in Israel about citrus fruits that on the outside of the fruit, on the skin, there are little bugs called knimot. I don't know what a knima is in English. But it's like, it doesn't look like a bug, it looks like a circle. And it comes off. It scales off of the peel very easily. Like a little brown dot, which at one point had a bug in it. And they live there on the skin of the citrus fruits, oranges. So whenever I peel an orange, I look at my fingers to make sure that I don't have any of those round brown dots, which might have a bug in them. And so I clean off my hands before I don't want them to get all over my fruit. They're not on the inside of the fruit, they're on the outside, but they get on your hands. Like specks of, but usually they're round and circular, with a little, sometimes there's a little white dot in the middle of the brown spot. That is a knima. And that we're not allowed to eat. But if you can't see it, and it's not there, no problem. These brown spots, I don't know that they're that. I doubt it. And even if they are, they've been crushed, as I said, and they're nullified. So I don't think it's a problem. But, what is the bracha on fruit leather? Did you find it in the book?
Yes.
Well, that's not the leather. That hasn't been changed. That's the apricot itself, the fruit. My question is, now we're eating something that's mashed and rolled out, and it looks like leather.
But how do you get it in English? How do you call it?
Leather.
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 Look under L.
Cuero.
Huh.
Cuero.
Sí, cuero, pero...
Do they have it in the book? It looks like a rolled up Leath. No? Okay, they don't have it in the book. The book doesn't have everything. That's why we have class.
To qualify for Borena for sure, it has to be Gazette, no?
That's right. So have a kazait. And have more. Just take more. Make sure you have a kazait. And then we'll save Borena for sure. No. Kazait is enough for a bracha achrona. But there's different measurements of how big is the kazait.
You missed that.
Yeah, it's not here.
What is it not?
Google say
That's what I said. They're asking me what Google says. How does Google know? Because I told them. Pass me the book, please. Let me see. Pass me the book. It's a modern treat.
It's a specialty. It's something unusual.
Let's see. Maybe it's under...
We have a specialty.
Yeah. This is a specialty. Gazette. You had a Gazette.
I had a gazette of this.
Gazette? You have Gazette. You have Gazette.
What did you say, guys?
It's an apricot. It's not a fine species. Correct?
Here, hang on. I'm sure it's here somewhere in the snacks, but I haven't found it yet.
I've never even seen this before.
Never seen it, huh?
No. Where do you buy it?
Someone brought it to me as a gift. Maybe it's an Israeli thing, I don't know, but it is quite popular in Israel. Kids like to buy it as a snack, you know. Instead of a candy bar, it's like parents think it's healthier because it's fruit, right? It depends. If it's a high quality one, then all it is fruit. But if it's I think they just mash it. I just think they just they.
And gelatin or something, or is it set into a?
I'm not sure. Maybe they cook it up and then it dries in that way. I don't know. Maybe they have to cook it. Here, fruit leather, 148. It is in here. You see that? 148.
I think I got the money.
Yeah. Here it is. On the top of page 148, two opinions.
Oh.
On the top of the page, 148. Fruit leather. You see it. Picture.
Oh, yeah. Fruit.
Some say ha'et, some say sha'akol. You can see the different opinions. Pass it around.
That's called ice.
Okay.
Yeah, bless.
You tell me. What's the after blessing? Why?
It's not 5 grains.
It's not from the 5 grains. Or?
It's not 7 species.
It's not from the 5 species, the special. It's not. There's apricots. It's not a pomegranate. It's not an olive. It's not a grape. And it's not date. And it's not a fig. So no ala michya, no mein shalosh. Just borei nefashot.
For Tapua heads as well, borei nefashot. No.
That's right. That's right. That's correct.
No.
That's correct. You've been doing it wrong all these years. Okay.
Yeah.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Say sorry. Do the vidui.
But I didn't do it on purpose.
Of course. Hashem will forgive you. As long as you learn, you say you're sorry, you do vidui, and that's forgiveness, and then you'll do better now. From now on, you'll know the right bracha.
Rimonim, dates, and heights, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
please.
Okay, Shmuel, yeah, another question. Back to the tefillah. He wants to go back to the tefillah. Go ahead.
Why is Shemay Tefillah and Kedusha? Why is that special?
I'll tell you. Be'ezrat Hashem. I think Shomei Tefillah is kind of obvious because it is the concluding blessing of the 13 petitionary section, the request, and it's sort of like a catch-all. Answer all of our prayers. Shomei Tefillah. So that you can understand why it's a prominent place, because it's sort of like the essence of the entire 13 blessings. Kel Kadosh, it's the culmination of the first 3 blessings, the introductory blessings, the approaching God, speaking of God's holiness. That is a very important blessing, so important that in the repetition we add the Kedusha to it. We say Kadosh, 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 together with the community. We have a whole big deal about the bracha Hakel Kadosh. It's a very important central blessing, essentially speaking about our encounter with God, our encounter with holiness. What are we doing when we're praying? We're bringing holiness into the world. And so the bracha about the God who is holy has special prominence. Okay? B'kasha. Other questions? Everybody please turn to page 231.
This is not supposed to be asking nothing. Safadi?
Both. Which one? For which question? Yeah, Ashkenaz and Sfard. Yes, what about it?
Is the reading asking Safadi?
The Sephard is the standard. I only brought what the difference is between the Ashkenazi custom. The standard custom, what it says there is this, according to the Sephard, is that we say the Vidui and the 13 attributes, and then afterwards we say the Tachanun, and then we say the extra long Tachanun on Mondays and Thursdays. Whereas in the Ashkenaz version, you push off the Nefilat Apayim, the laying down the head, until the end of the Behurachum. Difference between the Ashkenaz order of prayers and the Sephard order of prayers.
For reciting the Tachanun, is it mandatory saying Avinu Malkeinu? Because we say this in the days of Elul until Rosh Hashanah.
True.
So that's why.
It's important. Everybody, please open up to the Avinu Malkeinu. What are you talking about? Olive oil? It's interesting. People, what does it say? Shakol on olive oil, right? Hayetz? Who drinks olive oil? Who drinks olive oil? Yeah? Because it tastes good, you want it? Okay. I guess that's why you say hayetz. That's the primary usage of olives, is olive oil. There's some strange people that actually eat the olive itself. It's tasty. People like it. But the olive oil is considered to be the primary fruit. And so the bracha is ha'etz if you drink it as a drink. I've never done that.
203.
Actually, I'd like you to go to the Avinu Malkeinu on page 203. Thank you. 203. Amram is asking here because it's so confusing. In most years, the Avinu Malkeinu prayer, as you can see here, is only said, that's avocado oil. That for sure is shahako. You take the avocado and you squeeze it out and you make a drink out of it. It doesn't retain the status of the fruit. No, it's not. Because olives are designed for that. Avocados are primarily used for eating the fruit, not for making oil out of it. You can make oil out of it, and apparently some people do. But the bracha on avocado oil, if you happen to drink it, would be shehakol. That's not the primary use of the fruit. Okay, so Avinu Malkeinu, it's usually only said in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and on fast days. How many fast days are there in the year? 5, maybe 6, depends how you count.
6?
Out of 365 days, only 5 days. And then, okay, the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, how many are there?
10 days.
10. There are 10. So how many? Sum total of 15. Out of 365 days, what percentage is that? It's about 2%.
Why 15?
15 days a year, we say Avinu Malkeinu.
Oh.
Out of the 365. Right? 15 days out of 365, that's about 2-3%. Not much more than that. No. Avinu Malkeinu, you don't say for 40 days. The whole Elul, you say Avinu Malkeinu?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
With Salichot?
Slichot you say, but not Avinu Malkeinu.
Yeah, with Salichot, amen.
But it's not part of the Slichot Avinu Malkeinu.
No, in the days we say Salichot.
You don't say every day you say Slichot, you say Avinu Malkeinu. I don't think so.
On Elul.
The whole Elul, I don't think you say Avinu Malkeinu. Even Sfaradim, I don't think they do.
No.
Only for the 10 days of between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So
why in here?
So now I'm explaining. So Avinu Malkeinu is a rare prayer. It's rarely said. Most of the year we don't say it. And that's why what's confusing is that nowadays, at least in Israel, I don't know what's going on in other parts of the world, most rabbis have said during wartime, we have to pray very hard that our soldiers will protect us. Hashem will protect us through the soldiers. And there were 1,000 people killed in one day. 1,200 people, 1,500 people.
One day?
In one day they were kidnapped. Hundreds of people were kidnapped, October 7th. And then we started a war. And now almost every day another soldier is killed, another 2 soldiers. It's really been a very difficult period. And so the rabbi said, we have to pray extra prayers. We've been practicing the Achenu prayer. But in addition, in many, many communities, the rabbis have said, we're going to add Avinu Malkeinu. It's a great prayer. It's a very ancient prayer. It said, the Talmud relates a story that there was once a famine in the land of Israel. And one rabbi got up to pray, and he said that there was no Siddur. He composed a prayer, and no rain came. Another rabbi came and composed a prayer. No rain came. Rabbi Akiva came. And he recited, Avinu Malkeinu. This was the format of the prayer which he composed. And I forget which words he said, Ein lanu melech ela ata, or which one of the Avinu Malkeinu is mentioned in the Mishnah. And then it rained. So we have a tradition that this formulation is very powerful prayer that Hashem loves very much and He responds to. And so on fast days, on special times when we really need Hashem's response and His assistance, we recite this Avinu Malkeinu. You've been seeing it every day, so you think, well, this is part of the regular services. No, it's only because of the war. Now, special, that most communities you'll go to, the Chazan will recite Avinu Malkeinu. In my community, the rabbi chose highlights. We don't say all 30 of them, we say about 10 of them. Take a look, for example, at the beginning. Our Father, our King, we have sinned before you. Father of King, we have no king but you. 202. Our Father, our King, deal kindly with us for the sake of your name. Number 4, he skips. Bless us with a good year. Well, that's because usually you say it at the beginning of the year. But now we're not asking for blessings, we want protection. So, but number 5, our Father, our King, nullify all harsh decrees against us. That for sure, we say. And the next one, nullify the plans of those who hate us. For sure, we say that one. And the next one, our Father, our King, thwart the counsel of our enemies. For sure, we say that one. And so then he skips a little bit. He skips a little bit to the next page. And I want you to skip to page 206, please. And I want to show you a version which only appears in the Ashkenazi version of Avinu Malkeinu. As I said, the Avinu Malkeinu format, structure, goes all the way back to the Mishnah, Rabbi Akiva, but not all the specific lines. Each lines were added on by various communities. In the European communities who were under the gun or the sword of the Crusaders, and they were dying. They were being murdered because they were not willing to convert to Christianity. Their children were being slaughtered. They had tremendous devotion in the Ashkenazi communities to not convert to Christianity under the threat of the Crusaders. They added in these lines. I want to look with me now, please. In the middle of page 206, our Father, our King, have pity on us, our children, and our infants. Our Father, our King, act for the sake of those who were killed for your holy name. Our Father, our King, act for the sake of those who were slaughtered for proclaiming your unity. All of the Jews in the land of Israel who were killed because they're Jewish, it doesn't matter that they were at a party, a rave of some kind on Yom Tov. They were killed because they were Jews and they were slaughtered. Children were slaughtered in the most brutal way. Act for those who went through fire and water to sanctify your name. Our Father, our King, avenge before our eyes the spilt blood of your servants. So these sentences are very graphic, very powerful, because the communities went through very difficult slaughters. And in my community, we recite these as the highlights. We don't say all the Avinu Malkeinu. And even the Sephardi shul is saying these lines because they're so apt, they're so appropriate to this horrible massacre that we experienced on October 7th. and afterwards.
And the
So,
soldiers too.
sorry?
And the soldiers that are.
And the soldiers, of course, that are sanctified, that they're giving their lives for the sake of protecting the Jewish people, Hashem's people. And then most people conclude with the last line. And we'll sing it, because you know the song. Avinu Malkeinu Choneinu Vaneinu Avinu Malkeinu Choneinu Vaneinu Ki ein banu ma'aseh Aseh imanu. Last line now. On 207. Tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed ve'oshienu. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed ve'oshienu. Page 231. Acheinu kol beit Yisrael. Acheinu kol beit Yisrael. Asduni b'tzara ובשביה העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. אחינו בית ישראל, אחינו כל בית ישראל הנתונים צרה ובשביה עומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה. המקום ירחם למען יוציא מצרה וינחם וישמרו ישירו לבגולה השם בגלה ובזמן קריב המקום עליהם יוצאים מגזרה ברכה ומאבלה רם ישיבו לגאולה השתה בגלה ובזמן קרוב בריא. Amen. Amen. Shakoach. Okay, we'll stop here for today. Svat Hashem. It's before there was even Ashkenazim and Sephardim. All communities say Avinu Malkeinu. It's not only Sephardim, no.
Question about anything that's after the Amidah can be interrupted?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's no units that have, yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi.
No problem. Okay. Svat Hashem.
Can you keep this with me?
Yes. Okay.
Ahí tú podrías ir a una tienda y puedes clasificar esto.
No. Gracias.
Te gusta 3.
Well, why isn't there a repetition for
Quítate aquí.
Sí, hay una librería,
That's a
¿no?
good question. Arvit is an interesting prayer that has a history.
much later?
It's a later. It became obligatory only later, and so the laws worked a little bit differently. Yeah, it's no repetition. It's never instituted. Yeah.
We have. I was here yesterday for for Shacharit with the Torah reading. Shabbat, they have this wonderful Valkyrie, and you can, it's clear,
Great.
and it's wonderful. On Tuesday, everything on Thursday, they have this Ashkenazi guy. It's all the oy, that's